This is my best ever upside down caramelized apple tart. It is called a Tarte Tatin, but I tell you what, with these little secrets, you are gonna make the most delicious desserts for the rest of your life. Where we start? With the pastry. Now this is a puff pastry, and all I do, I dip my fingers in the flour, and then I just flick over the top. I don't dust flour like that, I just put them in, and then I just flick, right? And that is all you want. You don't wanna use too much flour, that's an important point. Then you just roll this out, making sure that you can still pick this up. What we really want is just to create a piece of puff pastry bigger than the pan you're gonna cook it in. So you can place the pan over it, upside down. As long as you can cut out a circle, you're good. So let's do that. Grab a small knife, and then you are just gonna run that around, kind of like this, around like that, until you've got a pretty good circle. We're going to leave it here for now. We will chill it because you want your pastry to rest. Next, you take your pan, you stick it on the heat, because we're going to make a caramel. Then we're going to put our apples on top of that caramel. Then the pastry goes on top. It bakes like that, so the pastry gets really crispy because it's on the top, and then we flip it over and it becomes the base. So what is on the top becomes the bottom, and the bottom becomes the top. We start with a nice hot pan, and we throw in some butter and some sugar, and we let that sugar turn into a beautiful deep amber caramel. While that's happening, we can go ahead and take some cinnamon. I'm going to throw a couple of cinnamon sticks in there, and vanilla. Now to soften up that vanilla, I want you to run it in between your finger and your thumb like this, push it down onto your board, and then you're going to cut it lengthways all the way through. Take your time with it, all the way through like that. Then you can scrape some of that vanilla out. See all that? See those gorgeous little dots of black? Each little bean has a ton of flavor, so we run that knife down both sides of our vanilla, and we extract lots of that wonderful, wonderful vanilla flavor. Then we go ahead and we put that right on into our caramel. Stamen of a flower. I'm gonna stick that into my caramel and let lots of the flavor of that vanilla come out as our caramel starts to get a little color. Oh yeah, you can see it right there. Next, the apples. And I peeled them before you came. You can do these beautiful little petals. The way you do that is you cut your apple in half like this, or you can cut them into quarters first, and then cut the core out, and the bottoms of these apples off, and then you can kind of, us chefs call it turning the apple. You can turn them like that. You want the apples to be a little drier. If they're full of moisture, they end up too soft when they cook, right? So what we do in the restaurant is we actually leave these apples in the fridge uncovered for a couple of days, and that will give you slightly drier apples to use. So if you can be bothered taking that step, it's fun. It's a good, clever one. If you're making an apple tarte tatin and gonna cook it tonight, don't you worry about it. It's still gonna come out just fine. Another way to do it is to cut your apple directly in half. Go ahead and just remove the core. You can kind of go in on one side and then in on the other as well, just like that. And then you can just trim that apple up ever so slightly. And you can actually use that whole half apple. That's possible as well. So that also makes a delicious tarte tatin. Once you're happy with the color, which I am, I don't want my caramel to go any darker than that, right? That's perfect. I turn the heat off, and then we're gonna let that cool down. I leave the vanilla right down the middle, and then I put a piece of cinnamon going in the other two directions. If you wanna go for the easy way with the apples, just take the whole apple, half apple, just stick it in, just like that, upside down. So you're putting the flat side of the apple up, because don't forget, that is the upside down part of this tart. Right, what you do next is you let this caramel cool down, and then you pick up your pastry, you bring the pastry over, and you stick that straight over the apples like so. You let it all drape down until it's touching the bottom. You can even curl it under those apples ever so slightly, just like that. You do need to cut a little cross in the top, just to let the air escape. That's a little steam vent that we're cutting into there. Now, you can pop it back into the fridge, let the pastry rest, right? And that will stop the gluten too active, the gluten in the flour too active, or you can stick it straight in the oven It might just be a little bit wonky if you stick it straight in the oven, but that's what we're going to do because we're running out of time, aren't we? So we pop it in the oven and we'll see how it comes out. In the oven, we've got a layer of caramel, then the apples, and then the puff pastry on top. What we're going to do is flip that whole thing over. So inside the tart will be those beautiful whole half apples. So what else do we need? More caramel. We need a delicious caramel sauce, and we're going to serve this with a beautiful ball of vanilla ice cream. So into your pan, what I want you to do, I take some sugar. What we do is we wait for the sugar to melt. It'll turn into a liquid, and then it'll start to deepen in color. It'll get amber, and then it'll get golden brown, and eventually caramel. Then we go ahead and pour the cream on top. What we do is we don't stir it, we just move it around the pan, and it will turn into the most fabulous caramel sauce. You can use this on everything, by the way. Once that cream comes up to a boil, then you go in and just gently disturb the bottom, not overly stirring it with any vigor. Look at how lovely and thick this has become. Fantastic. Let's have a look. Oh yes. Have a look at that. It's exactly how I want it to look. Bubbly, golden around the outside. You can see that puff pastry is perfectly crisp on the top, but I sort of just swivel my pan around ever so slightly just to loosen up those apples to make sure that absolutely not stuck to the bottom. And then what you're going to do is flip this out in one shot. Okay, so let it cool down just a little. And then you just go like this, keeping your body well away from the caramel. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Pick that up and have a look at what happens. You've got those beautiful caramelized apples. 1, 2, 3, 4, in between the cinnamon and the sugar. Oh my goodness, that looks delicious. Like that. Over here to our new plate. And then we take that little bit of caramel sauce, we drizzle that straight over the apples. Oh, she'll be apples. So they look glossy and fantastic. So I'm showing you this two ways. This is if you want to do the half apples, and over here is where we fanned out those apple quarters or turned apple cheeks, which also looks just so delicious. Just don't forget that little bit of caramel sauce over the top. I mean, this is the perfect sharer. I leave the cinnamon and the vanilla in. Of course, you'll remove that just before you serve it, but I don't do anything without this. One big old dollop of ice cream. You ready? Right in the center. I mean, happy days. My best ever caramelized apple tart right here. It's called a Tarte Tatin, and you're gonna love it. And thanks for watching. Now, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you want more, because I've got plenty to give you. All you have to do is subscribe.